special. You really thought you were special.
I'm definitely open to sitting down with him to hear his side of the story and maybe even learn something from his perspective. At the end of the day, we're both grown men. But let's be clear, I don't think this relationship works, and I'm not looking for anything long-term. We've been places together, and then he just left, so honestly, oh my god, you wouldn't believe it. Now, let's talk about Maris Jackson's son because he just proved the old saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, to be completely true. Instead of staying out of the drama between his father and the Meech family, he jumped right into it, full force. And when I say jumped in, I don't mean he was just testing the waters. No, he went all in, straight up trolling them. But here's where things get even more interesting. There are rumors swirling that 50 Cent was not happy about his son getting involved in this mess. In fact, word on the street is that 50 actually warned him to back off unless he wanted to get caught in the middle of something serious. Now, let's take a step back and think about that for a second. Can you imagine a father threatening his own son just because of some long-standing grudge? It's wild, but given 50's reputation, it's not entirely surprising. We all know how ruthless and unforgiving he can be when it comes to beef. Meanwhile, poor Lil Meech is out here practically begging his father to remain loyal to him. He's sending messages, trying to get through to 50 Cent, hoping he'll listen. But let's be real, when has 50 ever backed down or changed his mind because someone asked him nicely? That man is as stubborn as they come, and if he's made up his mind, there's not much anyone can do to change it. At the end of the day, this whole situation is a mess. Family drama, public trolling, and a father-son dynamic that seems more like a battlefield than a bond. It's all playing out in front of the world. And as much as people love the entertainment, you can't help but wonder how this is all going to end. Will 50 ever soften up? Will his son regret getting involved? Will Lil Meech find a way to fix things? One thing's for sure, this isn't over yet. Big Meech and Rick Ross weren't just friends, they were business partners. But as the saying goes, money and friendship don't always mix well, and that's exactly what led to the drama. The situation took a turn when Big Meech, freshly out of prison—
So it's an olive branch, like, if you up for it, I'm up for it. I'm definitely willing to sit down with him and so I can hear his—
decided to team up with Rick Ross for a huge welcome home concert set for February 2025. Before his time behind bars, Big Meech and his brother, Terry, better known as Southwest T, were at the top of one of the biggest and most dangerous criminal empires in America. Their organization, the Black Mafia Family, BMF, controlled illegal operations across the country from the 1980s until the early 2000s. Though they had their hands in multiple businesses, including the music industry, their primary source of power and wealth came from drug trafficking. Things took a drastic turn in 2005 when law enforcement finally caught up with them. The FBI and DEA launched a massive crackdown, raiding BMF's safe houses and seizing everything in sight: millions of dollars in cash, expensive assets, luxury cars, weapons, and anything else tied to the organization. The federal operation was so big that it led to the downfall of the entire empire. All the top members, including Big Meech and Southwest T, were arrested and charged. Now, let's talk about the serious trouble they were in. These weren't small-time charges. They were hit with conspiracy to distribute massive amounts of illegal drugs, money laundering, and a laundry list of other federal offenses. When the case wrapped up in 2008, both brothers were sentenced to 30 years in prison. Imagine that, an empire worth over $270 million, built over decades, wiped out in an instant. The fortune they had once controlled disappeared overnight. Anything that wasn't seized by the feds most likely went into paying off their high-powered attorneys and making sure their families were taken care of while they were locked up. Now that Big Meech is finally out, all eyes are on his next move. He's walking back into a world that's completely changed since the early 2000s. The street game isn't the same, the music industry has evolved, and the people he once trusted may not be as loyal as they were before. His decision to link up with Rick Ross for a big comeback event is making waves, and people are wondering, will this be a fresh start for him, or is there more drama on the horizon? One thing's for sure, Big Meech's story is far from over. Teamed up with Rick Ross straight away for this performance, which would at least help him out financially. I mean, he's presumably waiting for his share from the next BMF season, but money doesn't wait. Speaking of the BMF series, allow me to explain this intriguing circumstance. Demetrius Fenner Jr., also known as Lil Meech, is Big Meech's son, and he plays his father in this drama, which is based on the real-life tale of Big Meech and Southwest T. However, here is where it gets. This whole situation is incredibly fascinating. 50 Cent isn't just a casual observer, he's deeply involved. He serves as the executive producer of the BMF series, and his company, G-Unit Films, is one of the production companies bringing it to life. But here's where things get even more interesting. Big Meech sold the rights to his life story to a woman named Tammy Cowens, who is also a co-producer of the show. No one knows the exact details of their agreement, but rumors suggest that Big Meech is set to receive a share of the show's profits. However, there's a problem. There hasn't been any official announcement about the next season's release date. This means that whatever money he's supposed to get is not coming anytime soon. And given how long Hollywood deals can take, it might be a while before he actually sees any profit from it. Now, let's talk about the Rick Ross situation, because this is where the drama really kicks in. Big Meech's decision to partner with Rick Ross stirred up a lot of controversy, but no one reacted more strongly than 50 Cent. From his perspective, this was nothing less than a betrayal. If you know anything about 50, you know he has a long-standing grudge against Rick Ross. He still calls him an officer, referring to Ross's past as a correctional officer, and has never let that go. So when 50 saw Big Meech hanging out with Rick Ross, acting all friendly, he lost it. He went straight to Instagram and made it clear how he felt. Believe it or not, he even called Big Meech a rat. He posted a shady message saying that this was the worst thing Meech had ever done, even worse than failing to maintain his relationship with Tammy Cowens. But 50 wasn't done there. He hinted at some big revelations coming soon, implying that there was a lot more to the story. He even teased a documentary that, according to him, would expose the truth.
Young Gatling, most people know him as Cuffy, but I wanted to make this recording so I can shed light on some facts. My dad was...
As if that wasn't cryptic enough, he followed up with another post, sharing a picture that read, "The facts are stranger than fiction." That message left everyone confused. Fans and industry insiders alike started asking the same questions. What was 50 trying to say? What truth was he threatening to reveal? And most importantly, who exactly is Tammy Cowens? Well, let me break it down for you. This all ties back to Big Meech's early release from prison. The feds had given him a 30-year sentence, but he got out earlier than expected. Now, 50 seems to be implying that there's more to the story behind his release, something that hasn't been made public yet. At this point, nobody knows what receipts 50 Cent is holding on to, but one thing is clear, he's not letting this go. If he really does have information that could shake things up, then this situation is far from over. The question now is, will 50 expose whatever he knows? Or is this just another classic case of him stirring the pot for attention? Either way, the tension between 50 Cent, Rick Ross, Big Meech, and Tammy Cowens is reaching new heights, and it looks like there's way more drama to come. Remember how I mentioned that he received a 30-year sentence back in 2008? Well, people began to wonder how he was able to get out so early, so the whispers began spreading rumors that Big Meech had struck a deal with the federal government to snitch on someone else in order to gain his freedom. According to the streets, Tammy Cowens reportedly assisted in setting up this entire situation. Big Meech had to set up someone else for the federal government to arrest, and guess who he chose? His friend and longtime business partner, St. Louis drug kingpin Dion Gatling, often known as Cuffy, was involved in more than simply a casual business partnership. When Tamara Gatling, Cuffy's daughter, came forward with the truth, it was like a bomb was dropped. She revealed how devastated their family was to learn of Big Meech's betrayal, but the real kicker was that Big Meech wasn't working alone. His accomplice was none other than federal informant Tammy Cowens. Big Meech and Cuffy were close, almost like family. Her self-regling. I'm making this recording in regards to my dad, his Dion Gatling most. Although he is known to most as Cuffy, I wanted to document this in order to shed some light on a few things. Demetrius Lanier, also known as Big Meech, was one of
the thought in my head, and I think like something is telling me to tell y'all or share this message with y'all. I feel
my
like
dad's closest friends. The two of them have been friends for over 30 years, and I've known Meech my entire life. I regard him as an uncle. This situation has been absolutely devastating on a number of levels, and there are still a lot of unanswered questions. Aren't addressed at this time. I can only provide insight into what I know to be the facts, and hopefully one day I'll have the whole truth. However, in 2011, around that time, Meech approached my dad about making a BMF movie, so Meech connected my dad with Tammy Cowens, who was then Meech's power of attorney and the owner of the life right. My dad was working with Meech on a movie, and when Meech arrested him, we learned that he knew precisely who CS1 was, and he informed my mother and I that it was Tammy Collins. At the time, we didn't want to believe it and wanted to give Meech the benefit of the doubt. It was nearly unthinkable that Meech would set up my dad, so we were able to contact him and essentially inform him that Tammy was an informant. Later, we received a message from him stating that it must have been a misunderstanding, so we called her and she would clear things up. At this point, my father said, "I'm not stupid, I'm not going to call and tell it." It appears that 50 Cent had reached his breaking point with Big Meech's actions. Here, Big Meech claimed allegiance to 50 while working with Rick Ross, whom 50 believes is another government informant. The drama escalated when 50 dropped the bombshell that the BMF series would not be returning for another season. But to make matters worse, 50 chose to post his private correspondence with Lil Meech. Images in these texts in a desperate attempt to protect his father. Poor Lil Meech clarified that his father merely collaborated with Rick Ross in order to avoid betraying 50 when 50's son Marquise Jackson decided to stir things up by making fun of Lil Meech for believing he was somehow special to 50. The messages were heartbreaking. They said, "You unfollowed me on Instagram, and I would take the shirt off my back for you. I couldn't believe this. You act like I'm your enemy. I've only shown you love and loyalty. I woke up today and I had this overwhelming thought in my head and I think like something is telling me to tell your law, __. Is message with you'll see you I feel like it's. Someone out there, or maybe a number of people out there, need hear this. It was like you thought you were unique, and you really believe that someone told you that. But here's the truth. 50 and his kid have had a rocky relationship for years. In reality, Marquise was brought up by his mother Shaniqua Tompkins and 50Y had a very nasty custody battle that lasted until 2008. During this whole mess, 50Y told MTV that his relationship with his son was suffering because he and Sheena were no longer on speaking terms. He revealed that he had to hire lawyers just to speak to his own son, and he made some serious insinuations about Shaniqua, implying that she had costly habits and wasn't adjusting to the change well. Funds ceased to flow. The court eventually came to an agreement where 50 could visit Mars once a month and they would divide holidays and vacations, but according to People magazine, even though 50 continued to pay child support until Mary turned 18, they had been estranged for years. In 2017, Mary opened up about the entire situation in this heartbreaking article. The situation was so toxic that 50's negative feelings toward Maris's mother spilled over onto his son, and he was convinced that both of them were only after his money. Interview with conclusion he
was set up by one of his best friends, which is Demetrius Flannery, also known as Big Meech. My dad
disclosed that his life began to take a turn for the worst when he was approximately 10 or 11 years old. He added, "My dad was my superhero growing up. He does this and that on television, but as I got older, you start realizing things or seeing certain patterns." The unfortunate man was unable to recall the last time he and his father ever spoke, and things became worse when, in 2850, he posted this startling remark on a picture of Marquise with his opponent Kenneth Supreme McGriff's kid. He genuinely commented, "People were furious that he wouldn't have a terrible day if both boys were struck by a bus, but subsequent reports said that Marquise does these things on purpose to irritate his father, claiming that he would find anybody in their 50s with whom he is at odds only to publish photos of them." When Maris made this fervent request on social media in October 2022, the situation reached its lowest point. He promised to give his father $6,700, which is the precise amount of his monthly child support, in exchange for only 24 hours of his time so that he could do whatever they never got to do when he was younger, and it was really tragic. Everyone could see that it was a scream for assistance, but at the age of 50, he didn't even answer. Willing to have a conversation with him so that I can hear his point of view and learn a little bit. After all, we're both males, so we ought to be able to agree and disagree. From his point of view, he probably thinks I feel entitled, but honestly, that's not the case. For me, it was never about the money, it's always been about the relationship. That's what truly matters to me. If it were just about money, I'd do whatever it takes to make things even slightly better, if that were even possible. To be completely honest, I don't know what to expect from this situation. I don't know how things would turn out if we actually sat down and had a real conversation. Would it change anything? Would we finally be able to understand each other? Or would it just confirm that things are beyond repair? If it takes paying for his time to make that meeting happen, then so be it. I'm more than willing to do that. Because at the end of the day, I just want to understand each other better. Maybe that's what a better situation looks like. Maybe that's the only way to move forward. But when 50 Cent finally spoke about the situation on The Breakfast Club, his response was cold, icy, even. He didn't sugarcoat anything. He flat out said that he saw no reason to even try fixing things with his son. He made it clear that if someone truly wanted to mend a broken relationship, they wouldn't run to TMZ or make a public spectacle out of it. Instead, they would simply pick up the phone and call directly. In his words, "You'd contact me, not TMZ. If you really wanted to sit down, you'd just reach out. But no, you want attention. And that's fine, you can have as much of it as you want." That statement alone showed just how deep this issue runs. It's not just a father and son having a falling out, it's years of resentment, pride, and miscommunication that have turned into something way more complicated. It's clear that 50 doesn't see the point in fixing things. In his eyes, this relationship is beyond saving. But on the other side, his son still wants to sit down and talk. He still hopes that there's a chance to make things right. But at what cost? At this point, it's uncertain whether that conversation will ever happen. It's painful to see, but one thing is clear. This isn't just about money. It's about hurt, misunderstandings, and a bond that might be broken beyond repair. You know, it's just like you. He has been trained to believe what you've seen him say, and in that interview that what he was saying has been trained to believe that for a long time, bro. Like, you don't just wake up and say, "Oh well, I don't believe what I've been believing for ages." For example, when I said that he's entitled, it's actually his mother's entitlement. It's been filed million right, and they have no regard for you, no matter how much you think you should give them before they have a little bit of a damn. See, it's not going to work that way. I don't think that the relationship works. I'm not looking for a long time, man. I've been lagging behind her. Locations did he go and he left, you see what I mean? And then there's our
olive branch. Like, if you up for it, I'm up for it. I'm definitely willing to sit down with him and so I can hear his.
"I don't need or want money from you." He called out his. Then, he dropped this emotional bombshell about waiting outside to meet his father that day, saying, "You broke my heart, and I forgave you for it." With all this drama between Big Meech and 50 Cent exploding, Marquise is doing what he always does in an attempt to get his father's attention by jumping into whatever drama 50 is involved in, but 50 Cent isn't having any of it and is warning his son to. One thing is clear. This father-son relationship is as complicated and messy as they come, and neither side seems ready to wave the white flag given how the entire situation is unfolding, from the BMF drama with Big Meech and Rick Ross to 50's son Marquise trying to get involved in his father's beefs. The streets are rife with debates about whether 50-50 is being too harsh on his son or if Marquise is crossing lines by getting involved in his father's endless string of feuds. Draw his father's attention to Lil Meech's fervent attempts to salvage his family's program. It's like watching a real-life soap opera play out, and with 50 Cent involved, you never know what revealing turn of events may occur next. People, this is a tale of devotion, betrayal, family turmoil, and the cost of fame. The issue is, can these fathers and sons ever reconcile, or is this simply another chapter in their continuous stories? Please share your thoughts. Please share your ideas in the comment section below, and while you're here, don't forget to watch this following video, music. Oh,